singing. I'm wearing a lot of hats today. So I think we're going to go ahead and get ready to take an offering. Yes, Gray, would you please help find a helper? Or two, one. Jem. All right, so if you are ready and you have money that you want to bring today, you're welcome to come bring it. Jesus, thank you for the abundant way that you deal with us. Thank you that we have enough to share and to give, to build, and to grow other things. And so now we give it, and we trust you with how it's used and how it's going to multiply. You can also give online. If you use the World Harvest app, there's a place that you can give online as well today. You guys can still keep coming up. While you do, we do have a couple of announcements. Lauren has one. I don't know if she's still in the room. Oh, yeah, there you are. Sorry, I didn't see you, Lauren.
Hello. I'm going to talk a little bit about baptism and the potluck. So next Sunday is our Baptism Sunday. I wanted to just share a little bit about what's been on my heart for baptism. I've been really praying for the service next Sunday. We have 4 people signed up right now, but we would love to see more. Something that comes to my mind, I've just been listening to some worship songs. I keep replaying over and over again, and one of them is called "The Cost Is a Joy," and I listened to it the first time, and it just blew my mind, and I'm just like crying. I cry about everything. A lot of people know that, but and it's talking about how the cost of us just giving up everything and just loving the Lord and shining His love all the time, and just basically going after Him and finding Him and seeking Him is the greatest joy of our lives. And basically the cost is everything, right? And so I see baptism that way, is like the symbolism of us just giving everything, seeking Him to the fullest and giving up everything. And that cost is great joy. It's like the joy of our lives. So I just want to encourage you that if you feel that you want to do that, or if you feel you're like the tug but you're not sure, reach out to us. Amber has posted, you can sign up online or sign up in person or talk to Amber. But then afterwards we are going to do a potluck where hot dogs and buns are provided, and then we'd ask that you bring a side. So yeah, it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a really fun Sunday. So I hope you Oh, the sign-up sheet for the potluck is in the lobby. I already signed up. I was the first one, just so you know.
Plus 50 points for Lauren. Okay, and Jocelyn has an announcement here. I think she's going to share about an event.
Okay, I have the right times today because I knew I was off last week. So August 29, it's a Saturday afternoon, early evening. The time is going to be 4 to 7, okay? 4 to 7. I know last week I said 3 to 7, and I was like, something's wrong with that. So the time is 4 to 7. It is for ages 4 to 11. We are going to have a scavenger hunt in my backyard, and then I'm going to feed them, and then we're going to watch Evan Almighty, which is a really fun, I call it modern day Noah's Ark. I realize these kids will probably think it's an ancient movie, but it's really fun. So yes, please let me know if your kids are coming, just so I know I have plenty of food for them. That you can do that on the app is how you can sign up your kids to come. Or you can just tell me, because I can do that.
Okay, I think that's all the announcements, but I wanted to, is there a screen for it? I wanted to just put a little pin in your brains for September 19th. We're going to have a Who family picnic at Caledonia. So we will share more details closer to the date because I feel like we have some events that you already have to keep track of right now. So we're just like putting a little pin there for you to like block off that date maybe if you want to come be with the family for a picnic in the woods. It should be lovely. The kids are dismissed. Yes, is that right? Somebody give me like a... Yes, good. Okay, the kids can be dismissed to their places. And I am going to welcome my husband to speak today. So give him a big round of applause.
Good morning. You good, Anderson? What? Yes, you're allowed to go to class. Bye. Well, this is new for all of us. This is actually the first time I've ever wore one of these microphones before, and I'm not sure I'm going to know what to do with my hands without a guitar in them, but we'll figure it out. Since this is my first time speaking, I thought I would start with sort of sharing my testimony, which isn't very flashy, but I would argue that a lot of us share sort of the same testimony. I was born into a Christian family, and the Lord has kept me for just about 40 years. The end, more or less. But there's a statistic that I read that says most faith is passed down from generation to generation. So just out of curiosity, who else in here was born into a Christian family and was raised Christian? Most of us, which is good. You know, I mean, I think the Lord works in generations. I don't think he wants us to start over every time someone's born. It's like, boom, okay, now you need to learn all the same lessons that you did before. Who was here last week who was able to hear Diane's message? Good, because I want to jump off from some points that she mentioned there. If you haven't heard it, it's worth going back to and listening. I'm going to try to briefly summarize, but Diane brought up the story of the prodigal son, and then explained to us what prodigal means. The exact words were extravagant waste, reckless waste. So it's not, you know, the guy who went away and came back, but for reckless waste. And Diane tied that into some of the waste that we have is just the inheritance of the generations that have come before us. If you remember sort of what our topic was for the year, it's kind of foundational faith producing generational fruit. And I would argue that myself am the product of foundational faith before me. I exist as a generational fruit. And everyone who has raised their hand here today is generational fruit. It's a circle, you know. My father's faith led to my faith, which hopefully in turn will lead to my children's faith within their children's faith. You know, just constant taking the fruit that was provided to us, you know, consuming some of it, taking that seed and planting it on. So I want to go a little more over my testimony because it's not really so simple as, you know, I was born into it and I just lived into it and it's great. The Lord has really taken me through some major life lessons, and I'm just going to go and outline the lessons that the Lord has taught me over the years, you know, from early childhood to where I am now. But there is something that I do majorly wrestle with, not being the first generation who has encountered the Lord. Just so that when I point back to it, like I'll keep referring to it. And that is in Luke 7, 40 to 50. At this time, Jesus was in the house of a Pharisee, and a woman off the street had come in. And this is where she was washing his feet, you know, drying it with her hair. You know, actually, I thought this was Mary at first, but it never says this was Mary. So I learned that when I was reading this. Okay, but 40 goes. And Jesus responded and said to him, "Simon, I have something to say to you." And he replied, "Say it, teacher." A money lender had two debtors. The one owed him 500 denarii and the other 50. When they were unable to repay, he canceled the debts of both. So which of them will love him more? Simon answered and said, I assume the one for whom he had canceled the greater debt. And he said to him, you have judged correctly. I think we can stop there. I like how Simon says he assumes, like, maybe it's not so obvious. It's kind of like when you know the answer, but you're embarrassed to answer it. But anyways, I struggle a lot with that verse because I realize that I've never had the great experience of like Mark had. I was not living for the Lord, and I experienced the Lord, and now I experience the Lord, and my life has changed. Because I've lived in generational blessings, I can be unaware to the blessings that I live in day to day because they always have been. Things that my father and my mother have walked through, that the Lord has taken them from A to B, are things that I just live in every day with no awareness of what it cost them or what the Lord did for them. But it's important for us to realize that the Lord doesn't work in us just individually. We're not a whole bunch of individuals that the Lord's working. Okay, you do this, or you're over here, you're over here. You have no interaction between it. The accomplishments that you have are for all of us. He's working as a body for all of us to grow, but also as an individual for you to grow. So you'll get an aspect of how I see the Lord and my experience of the Lord, and it's going to be different from yours. Some of it may overlap, but hopefully it gives you a broader picture. Like I think about Gary and Robin, like they've experienced the Lord's, and Dan too, your family, you've experienced a level of the Lord's healing that I have never experienced. So while I don't necessarily have that part of my individual story, I have that experience from you that, yeah, the Lord is a healer. And I can take that and I can move forward with it. That's also an inheritance that I'm accepting from you guys to move forward. But my early childhood was pretty simple. My born and raised, siblings. We grew up in the church. Besides, the first elementary school years, I was homeschooled till about 7th grade. We were part of a Christian community. I got expelled from homeschool, figured that one out. Then I went to a Christian high school until 12th grade. After that, I went to, I guess technically it's a Catholic college. It was very worldly to me from coming from a private Christian school, and then went on to the workforce after that. That's the huge breakdown of that. So I think according to my notes, the first thing I was mentioning was being born into it can make you unaware of the blessings that you exist in. In the natural, I consider that things like electricity and indoor plumbing. Like you would never accept that you would never buy a house that didn't have those things. Like it's standard. You don't have that, you're gone, you're finding another house. I compare that to having a family that, raised me with fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. I always get gentleness, always not sure if it's there. Just having those truths in my life is a fruit. Like imagine if you didn't have those fruits in your life, if you had parents or a family who didn't have that. To grow up in a very angry household, or where you're taught to lie, and how hard that would be, or how much emotional turmoil that you would have to overcome later in your life. Some things that I operate in blessings are from the things my parents have overcome. My father would be the first generation Christian on his side of his family. Actually, he's the only believer on his side of the family. And interestingly enough, my grandmother had my father when she was 50, so he was a whoopsie. And when my grandmother was holding my father's, this is the story I was told. I should have verified it when I saw my dad like 2 weeks ago, but I didn't. So right now this is truth to me. It's going to be truth to you. The story I was told is my grandmother was holding my father in her arms, and someone came up to her and said, "This child is going to be for the Lord, and you're going to need to bring him to church." And so she did. And so with that, having no previous experience with who the Lord was, my grandmother, who's not a Christian, brought my father to church because of that. And that is generational inheritance that I live in, that the Lord has done, that while we live in a culture of individuals, like we got to get out of that, that is a blessing that I live in, that I did not have to overcome. And I have to sit there and remember that the Lord has done this for me. Right? If I don't remember that, then when I go back to Luke 7:40, I forget all the things the Lord has done. Like, who has been forgiven more? Who will love the Lord more? The one who's forgiven much or forgiven little? And if I can go back and remember all the things the Lord has done, I hope to turn that little bit of forgiveness that I think I have into a lot of bit of forgiveness so I can love the Lord more. On my mother's side, she comes from a long line of Catholics. And the story I remember from her side is one day she was praying, and I don't know if you know, but just in case, I think it's pretty common knowledge, but in case you don't know, Catholicism, you pray to St. Peter, you pray to St. Paul, you pray to Mary. She was sitting praying through the saints, and the story goes is she said she heard from the Lord, you no longer need to pray through anyone to get to me. You can pray straight to me. And from that, I live in the belief and the blessing that I don't need to go to anyone else to get to the Lord. I can go straight to the Lord. But without being, like I said, without being aware that the Lord has done that to my family, I would not realize the blessing that I have, that I just know that I can go to the Lord. Like, there's so much goodness around us that we miss because he's always been there. I think I'll jump into one of the other parables so I can bounce back to that one too. This would be Matthew 25. This is the parable of the bags of gold. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who calls his servants and entrusts wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went on once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of the servants returned and settled his accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you did not sow and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvested where I did not sow and gathered where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. Whoever has will be given more, and they will have in abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them, and throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Do you ever want to censor the Bible and be like, that seems a little harsh, maybe I don't read that? I wanted to focus more on, I think a lot of times when we read the scripture, we kind of focus on like the guy with the one talent, and he's like, oh, I hid this, and this is why you need to do something with nothing. But I actually want to just draw attention to the one with the 2 talents. right? He is there, and he doesn't have the most. He's not the best. You know, he's not given the most resources, but even with what he has been given, he makes abundance out of it. And so as Diane had mentioned with the parable of the prodigal son, you know, having the inheritance, right? Those talents that these guys were given were in forms of, think about it, inheritance. Like, not all of us were given 5. Some of us were given 2. And generationally, hopefully we multiply that 2 that we've been given into more and more. So as I start bringing up things that the Lord has done for me, I just think of that, okay, that's a talent in my bag. You may have a different talent, but that's a talent in my bag. So I walked up to high school. I think the Lord really started teaching me lessons once I left high school. Prior to that, I don't like to use the word isolated, because I don't think it's not, I think that's too harsh a word for what it was. But our company had been selective as far as like who we'd been around. It's always been Christians, right? And the easiest place to be a Christian is in church. There's an experiment that was done. I believe that whether you're a believer or not, if you're seeking truth, you'll find truth and you'll find the Lord in it. So this isn't necessarily a Christian experiment, but it's an experiment that I believe shows truth, and I think we can learn from it. The experiment goes like this. Researchers took a group of young children and a group of monkeys, and they had like a puzzle box. And so they took the puzzle box and they presented to the group of monkeys, and they said, and inside of it was a tree. And they said, okay, knock on it this side, and then the monkey would follow. And then knock it on this side, and then the monkey would do the same thing. And then they do a couple more steps, and then eventually they open the box. Now the box was concealed, you couldn't see inside of it. It was solid wood. So monkeys followed all the instructions and got into the box, got the treat. They did the same thing with children. Follow around, knock this side, knock that side, you know, switch this. Anyways, open the box, same results. You can't see the inside of the box. Then they replaced the box with, so that it was all transparent, that you could see everything inside. And the mystery was gone. All you had to do was open the box. The knocking did nothing. So they tried to knock on this side, and the monkeys wouldn't do it anymore. They went straight and they opened the box for it. But the children did. And the point that they realized after that, the children's reward was not the item in the box, but the approval of the authorities above them. In church, it is the easiest place to be a Christian, because as children, you're seeking the approval of those above you. And if you are only seeking the approval of the authority above you, you can easily answer, okay, you know, how many days did it rain? You know, oh, for Noah, oh, good job. You know, how many days in the grave was Jesus? Oh, good job. Oh, what were the names of the disciples? I may not be able to do all that one, but I can name all the Avengers, though, but that's, yeah. So as a young child, you know, it's hard to determine what I did to seek the Lord and what I did just for the approval of others. But when you're in that environment, you can't. It's hard to be honest with yourself and to see which one's which, you know, because you're learning these things, which is great, but you're never being tested in it. And so I think when I left high school to go into college, if I'm still seeking the approval of others, my views will change. You know, it will then become, what does my professor think? So, okay, I seek their approval. Like I'm all over the place, but I was gonna come back to this because it's a circle, but as parents, it's really important for us not to make our children in love with us, but to make them in love with the Lord. And that is something I'm still trying to sort out how to do. Because if they're just in love with, if they just know the rituals and they know what makes us happy, but doesn't connect with the Lord when they are outside of us, they may not have the strength to stand when, trials and tribulations come their way. And then they will forget the inheritance that they've walked into. And hopefully they don't end up being the one who buries it in the ground, but maybe. But living in isolation without Christian and entering college, the first lesson really that the Lord taught me was people who don't believe aren't the enemy. The school I went to, we would have kids who would come in, they would have trouble, or they had a pack of cigarettes, or they found out a drink or something like that, gone, they were out. And so I had to grow through a mindset that just because someone has done something that would be considered unchristian doesn't mean the Lord is not for them. Doesn't mean that they're evil, that doesn't mean that they need to be separated from, but almost more needs to experience the Lord's love. Doesn't mean I partake in everything that they partake in. I need to be the influence, and if you are in a position where you can't be the influence, I would encourage you to strengthen yourself before entering a situation like that. But like the world is, the people in the world are not necessarily our enemies. There are children of the Lord who will have blessings from the Lord that they're unaware of. Some of the blessings come from me, some of the blessings come from you. But don't be afraid of them. Don't run away from them. Don't talk bad about them when they're not around. Just because we see a lot on the screen, we're detached, and we feel like we can speak poorly of people because of that. Unless they're AI, they're a real person, and the Lord loves them, and your thoughts toward them will affect them whether you know them or not. And continuing my story outside of college, I was still in the church that I grew up in until a certain point. And as growing, I did learn to start taking the Lord, my relationship with the Lord, between me and him, and not just between me and him and my father, or him and my mother, or my mother's family. And there came a conflict where what I started believing, or what I thought I knew, became in conflict with the way that I felt the church was acting. Having grown up in the church from 0 to probably 24, 23 when this happened, I didn't know what the Lord wanted for his church anymore. I didn't lose faith in God. I think I lost faith in leadership. I think I lost faith in the church body, because I was still looking for someone to guide me in the ways of the Lord. Well, you always have someone who knows more than you and experience. You can do it, but there's a point where your growth has to be independent. It has to be part from you with the Lord, and not just the repeating of what another person has said. And so when I felt like hypocrisy started showing up, I didn't know how to handle it, and at that point my only solution was I can't be around these people anymore, and I separated. I think that was a hard time for me, just being outside of the body. I thought it was wisdom to separate. Probably was good for me to move on at that point, but for the reason I left, it probably wasn't, right? The immaturity to say, you know what, I'm just done with this, I'm not going to talk to them about it, I'm just walking out the door, and took a train home and never went back. I'll cut into this now. The funny thing is I felt resentment for that place for many years after that. And judgment, and being like, you did this, and you did this, and here's all the things you did wrong. And the Lord kind of smacked me upside the head one day and said to me, in their wrongdoing, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm said to them, in their wrongdoing, they have done more for me. than you have done in all your complaining. Said, in their wrongdoing, as far as what I see that their wrongdoing has, they have done more for me than I have done in all my complaining. If that doesn't humble your judgment toward people who you think are doing wrong things, then at least it did for me. I still have to come back to that, though, because for years, like, that was my home. You know, the church was the school I also attended, and so I spent more waking hours at that place. I think I just went to my house to sleep and basically lived there. But then, so it was about a 7-month interim between when I left that church and found another church. And then I had to come to the realization that, oh my gosh, you know, every church doesn't believe the exact same thing. Because if you only ever experience one church, you only experience one set of teachings. Then what do you do with that? Are they wrong? Am I wrong? But probably a bit of both. You know, I think we're all striving to seek the Lord's face. I think we generationally make increments of, we learn something from the Lord, we pass it on, it makes the Lord, so the lessons that they've learned are probably different than the lessons that I've learned. But is it then for me to separate and keep searching around for a church that believes exactly what my previous church believed, because it doesn't exist? I mean, honestly, Amanda and I have differences on not major things, like, but there are little things of how we practice that are different. Like, am I supposed to separate then from my wife because she doesn't believe exactly how I believe? I feel like as long as we're both pursuing the Lord and moving toward the direction of the Lord, we walk together. You know? If someone says, you know, there's more than one way to the Lord than through Jesus, then maybe we need to have a conversation about that. But like, if the carpet is red or carpet is blue, like that is something that we can, you know, move past together. Words in order, right? What does it matter? So I spent a number of years there, and I learned that, hey, take your faith into your own hands. If you disagree with certain things, that's okay. Learn from your experience of the Lord. If your experience of the Lord has told you one thing, believe that. That's okay. If they say something that's small and contradicting to that, you know, consider it. If it's something that you need to challenge with what you believe, challenge it. If it's something that you say, hey, I don't necessarily agree with that, it's okay to put that to the side. You know, continue walking. Don't let that stop you from walking. This next part, I was going to talk about my work. And I'm always really hesitant to talk about this because this is one of those areas that I feel bad about. Because of how I've experienced from the Lord and how I feel like the Lord has provided for me in this area where others have struggled. So sometimes I don't want to share it because I feel like I'm just going to rub this into someone's face. But honestly, I need to stop that because this is my experience of who the Lord is. You know, if I go back to it, I have not experienced the healing that you have. And where would we be if you guys never shared that healing with us? So for me, the biggest thing I know the Lord to be is provider. Jehovah Jireh, my provider. At no point in my life have I ever felt the lack from the Father. I don't have 5 talents in this. I maybe have 2 in this. But those 2 have been there time and time again. Time and time again. I've changed jobs a couple times, but I've never had to look for work. When I was in college, a couple companies came to the school, and I met them there, and I got a job right out of school. I had no idea there was a depression going or a financial crisis going on. I think it was 2008, right? The perfect time to start new employment. I had no idea. I just went from job, and I worked there for about 2.5 years. And this is a longer story. The brief notes in is the day that I went in to quit was the day that I let go. So I held on to my letter till the end of the day so I could collect unemployment, because if it was the other way around, I wouldn't have. I did spend time questioning whether I was going to do engineering or if I should try to find a way into music, but I was kind of unemployed for 7 months, and then out of that 7 months, I got a phone call from a friend to say, hey, we need an electrical engineer. Would you like to come work for us? Sure. Didn't put an application in and didn't apply, was provided with the job. During that time was the time I came down here and met you guys and met Amanda, and life has changed forever since. Well, while working for that company, we had moved back up to New York because the job was in Midtown, and that's where I lived, in Queens. And we had to say, okay, well, we had Kinsey. Amanda was pregnant with Oliver, and she's like, I don't want to raise my kids in New York City, which is understandable, I guess. Pregnant with Oliver, and it's like, okay, we're going to make a decision, and we're going to come down to Chambersburg. Not knowing anything about this area, right? I've only come down to visit you guys during Koinonias. That's about it. So, we talked to each other. We talked to the Lord. Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to figure it out. So, knowing that, I went to my employer, who was in Midtown Manhattan, and said, hey, listen, in about 3 months, we're looking to move. I want to give you enough time. This is my 3-month notice that I'm leaving. And he's like, well, you're going to work down there. I go, I have no idea. He goes, don't quit. Keep working on what you're working on. Open a satellite office for us in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. So day one coming down here, I was employed and never had to look for work down here. The Lord provided. Now, that company had some issues. And after 2.5 years, 2 years of being down here, there were some things that happened in the company, and basically money stopped flowing through it. And running the office down here, I basically told them, listen, the Chambersburg office is profitable right now. If you keep running like this, I can't guarantee that it's going to be, so I think you should consider closing the office. That's probably not in my best interest to tell my employer to cancel my position, but I thought I was being a good and faithful servant, and so that's what I did. We had that conversation on Tuesday, and he made the decision that we're going to close the office by Friday. And so I was in the middle of telling clients that, hey, we're closing, you can go to the main office, but this won't be here. And I had no employment after that. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had just determined that this is the responsible decision I had to make to be a good steward of what was given to me, and I would trust that the Lord would take care of it after that. Friday afternoon, one of the clients that I had worked for walked in the office, said, can I talk to you for 5 minutes? He said, if you want, I have a job for you starting on Monday. And we had three kids at that point. I think you were pregnant. No, we had Gray. It's a blur. It's a blur sometimes. But again, my life, I've experienced the provision of the Lord. Sometimes I think as part of it is saying yes. Oh, a lot of it is just saying yes to the opportunities that He presents before you. But some of that I think would be just because I was being a good steward with what I was given, even though it seemed like it wasn't in my best interest. I like to believe that some of that played into the honesty and truth, and that played into that. So then I was at this employer for about 2 years. And the original intent for me to be there was to start a mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineering branch at that company. It turned out that that's not what we ended up doing for various reasons. So after 2.5 years, or 2 years, I told Amanda, I really can't stay here anymore. There's no life in this. I feel like despite all the good intents and the blessings that we believe from this Lord, I feel like I'm sitting at my desk being paid to die. That's a little dramatic, but that's sort of how I felt. And so I told her, listen, we need to talk because there is no other employment for me in my career around here to do. So if I look for a new job, we're gonna move, and well, everything we thought we were coming down here for, we're not going to do, or we're just not going to be here anymore. While we were having that conversation, someone walked into my current employer's office and said, "What can we do about starting an MEP office in Chambersburg?" I didn't know this. And so when I went to go talk to my current boss about, hey, what are we going to do? He said, actually, someone came in looking for, see what we can do for MEP in the area. No promises or anything, but I gave him your number. So I was able to get in touch with them, and they're in York. That's where I'm currently employed now. They're in York, Pennsylvania. And so I told Amanda, they're in York, and I won't be able to commute an hour and a half each way for that. So I went to the interview, like 6 guys sat down. That's not intimidating at all. Went to the interview with the intent that I need to do what I need to do to provide for my family, and if it's going to York and having us move so that my kids can still live and eat, and Amanda can live and eat, and I like to eat too, that's what we're going to do. And during that interview, at the end of it, they said, you know what? How would you feel about running a new office in Chambersburg? Just, commute to York so that we can meet you for about 4 months. And then after that, we'll open an office for you. And that's kind of where I'm now. I run a branch office for an engineering firm. That's main office is in York. But through each one of those things, the Lord's provision was there, like always. Like I can't look at the Lord any other way but then to think that he's going to provide in some way, shape, or form. Like this is just scratching the surface. There've been countless times over and over the years. Oh no, this expense came in. Oh look, there's money that just showed up here. Oh, our HVAC broke. Oh look, a huge check just came in for that. Oh, we need a new van. Hey, some inheritance money came in. Like how many times? So I think I drive you nuts sometimes when they're like, hey, let's take a love offering for it. I'm like, okay, let's just put money in. You're like, how much money do you want to put in? I'm like, no, don't worry about it. The Lord will provide for it. But that's when I see the Lord, I just see provision. It's not 5 coins. I'm not living in a mansion somewhere. I don't have more than I know what to do with. You know what? I probably have more than I know what to do with. But that's the faithfulness that he's done for me. And honestly, Kinsey and Oliver and hi Gemma. That's the faithfulness the Lord has done for me that you get to live in. I think that's really important for us to start sharing those things that even we think may be prideful or boastful with each other. Because it should be okay for us to boast in the things that we know that the Lord has done. I think sometimes it feels arrogant. And I think if we take that, like this story could have been different if I said, look how great Chris is, right? If I said, oh, look, everyone wants to hire Chris. But I don't believe that. I believe it's the Lord's hand, the Lord's faithfulness that has been a part of my life that has led to the opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And if the opportunity is there, just say yes. Proceed with it. It's going to be hard. Like when I was commuting to York for the first 4 months, we had just had Frankie. And so we had a 2-week-old, and I was commuting an hour and a half each way, and then sometimes we needed to stay late at work. So my day was not sleep at night because we had a 2-week-old, drive to York, work for 8-9 hours, drive back, try to eat dinner, go to sleep, and start it over again. I look back at that and think, the provision of the Lord was that I made it through 4 months for that. Because I look at it now and think, how the heck did I do that? And I would challenge you to look at some of the more difficult times in your life and examine it for how the Lord has strengthened you in that moment that you couldn't do now. And it's not that you're weaker now than before, but the grace of the Lord was on you in that moment for that thing. I wasn't going to pause on that, but I feel like we need to pause on that. You can do more than you can do now in the challenging things, because the grace of the Lord will empower you to do things that you cannot do now. And it may be for that season, and that is all right. You don't need to do it forever. But when the Lord puts his blessing upon you and his grace upon you, walk in it. Really is the goodness of the Lord to work in generations. That we're not starting from zero every time. So much progress gets made just because we live in generations. Imagine every generation having to try to rebuild the engine from scratch. We take that for granted and we build off of that. So now on the other side of childhood, now I have children of my own. This is an area where I know lessons that need to be implemented, and putting the lessons that I know into practice isn't always 100%. You know, you know something and you try to walk in it and you fail, and you try to walk in and fail. And so, sorry kids that sometimes I say things to you that I don't always 100% follow. But just know that I'm trying to. This is for parents of natural children, but also of anyone who is in an influential place in any person's life. Right? Your walk with the Lord and your experience of the Lord is how they're going to experience the Lord at first. So operating in truth and honesty will help them grow, but operating in hypocrisy and lukewarmness can actually separate them from the Lord too. I think the Lord will chase them down either way, and what the Lord does with them. Someone once told me that I can't mess up my kids as bad as I think I'm going to mess them up. So I try to take that to heart anytime I do mess up. But I don't want to rob them of the inheritance that they can have. And if my children see me telling them one thing and then doing another, you know, it would be really easy for them to group everything that I said together and throw it all out. It takes real maturity to take something that someone has said, parse through it for what is truth and what is not truth, accept the truth, and throw out the stuff that's bad. We live in a generation today that we see anything that's bad, and not only are you throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you're burning the house down, right? Imagine if we did that to David, King David. Like we celebrate him, but how many things did this guy mess up? How many things did a lot of guys mess up in the Bible that are our church heroes? If we just took the little bad things that they did and threw them out, I don't know how much left we just have the stories of Jesus, and that's about it. So my kids, these stories are your stories too. The goodness that the Lord has done for me, the goodness the Lord has done for you guys. The experiences that I've experienced with the Lord are experiences for you too. Experiences that you have are experiences that I can have. We are the bride. You know, it's not hundreds and thousands of individuals' brides, but the church is the bride. Let us celebrate the generations that have come before us. Let us honor the generations that have come before us. Taking time to recognize what those are so that we can know that we are not those who have been forgiven little. We have been forgiven much. Let us turn the forgiven much into love much toward the Lord. And then let us also pass it on to our generations. Let us speak. I made the joke about, I know all the Avengers and I don't know all the disciples. But if I sit here and I'm being honest with myself, my kids probably know the Avengers more because I know the Avengers more than I know all the disciples. Something to think about. Something I didn't consider. But let our actions and our words toward the younger generations, let me speak of things that speak of the Lord so that you get to know the Lord for yourself and not just through stories you're detached from. Love the Lord more than you love me. You will have to grow through things. Your challenges will be different than mine. And I hope that you love the Lord more than I do. I hope you become wiser. I hope you are more encouraging. I hope you are more honest. I hope you experience miracles that I could only imagine. Go forth and take the fruit that you've been given and plant it and bring more generational fruit. Father, you are good and have so much for us. Open our eyes to recognize the blessings that you have planted way before we were born. Lord, blessings that go back before parents of parents of parents of parents, Lord. Lord, you prepare a way. None of us were born in the wrong place at the wrong time, Lord. Lord, we are here because you intended it for us. Let us be intentional about getting together with one another and sharing of your goodness. And to use a word that I don't know we use in church, but just to brag about how good you are. Let our focus be on you in the bragging, Lord, not on the accomplishments, but Lord, on the wonder and the miracles that you have done in those moments. Let us take all the experiences that everyone else has had in this room and say yes and amen to the goodness of the Lord in their lives for what they have experienced from you. And to know that those items are truth. And for us to live from that. Lord, we thank you for your goodness and we thank you for your faithfulness. Amen. I think that's all I got today. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the time, and I hope you guys all have a good lunch. And go talk to someone about the blessings that the Lord has done for you.